CEO Ronald Hickler from Creating the Difference. We're going to go through the entire process that you would go through in order to drill somebody a bowling ball. And we're doing it really just so you can kind of see the process, as well as maybe get a feel for some tips or maybe a little bit of tricks that we use when we're drilling a bowling ball for a player. So I've got a bowling ball here, and I actually have all their specs on a piece of paper. Now normally we would use a program called Spectre, which is a lot more efficient in terms of being able to capture all the data, but I actually happen to have his specs on a piece of paper, and we're going to use that to lay out this bowling ball and get him the reaction that he's looking for. So this ball happens to be a brand new ball for him, and he actually does a lot of our testing for us. It's Dustin, so we do specific layouts for him when we're doing bowling balls for him to review. So this ball is going to be laid out with a 60 by 4 3/4 by 30, and his access point is 5.5 inches over by 0 inches up. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure we have a sharp pencil. Now, some people don't think the sharp pencil matters, but it matters because the sharper the pencil, the finer the line you're going to draw on the ball. Sharp lines, or sharp pencils, fine lines, that's the way to go. So we're going to first start by marking the pen and the mass bias, ignoring the center of gravity. That no longer really plays a big role in performance because this matters most, this matters second most when it comes to laying on a ball. So then we've got to go line the ball up to be able to get our 60-degree mark, which is right here. Okay. Then we'll want to draw a line that indicates that we have 60 degrees, and on that particular line, we're going to want to go 4 3/4 inches, which is right there. And then we're going to line up again, and we're going to mark 30 degrees, which is right over here. That's going to be the vertical axis line. And then we're basically just going to connect those two lines. Look right for where they intersect. They intersect right here. That's the vertical axis line. And this spot is going to be what we're going to use his positive axis point. Now, he doesn't have an up or down measurement. It's just straight across. So with that, we're going to line up perpendicular to that vertical axis line. And then we're going to draw a line straight across to the left, and we're going to mark his 5.5 inch mark, which is right here. And this will be his center of grip. And his finger holes will go in this direction, his thumb hole will go in this direction. Now, it's important to do that. I can tell you why. One time I actually did a bowling ball, didn't put the fingers in thumb hole, came back and ended up going ahead and drilling it like this, and obviously it was wrong. By the time I realized it was too late. So I always now just mark the direction of the fingers and the thumb. Now, for his specs, there's lots of ways you can do people's specs, but we happen to have his specs in what's called a cut-to-cut, or where the actual holes actually go. A lot of times when you measure people, you want to measure the entire span, including the grips and the switch grip and the thumb slug. But for this particular case, we actually have his measurements down to the actual raw hole to raw hole, which is good because now I can put those raw holes in lines on the ball and then be able to hit those lines knowing that I've got his bowling ball laid out right. And once we put his grips in, once he gets his thumb put in, then everything will be matched out to his full span. So we're going to go, and first we're going to mark where his thumb goes, which we're going to go 2 inches and put a little mark there. And that's going to be his thumb position, okay? And then his ring finger is actually measurement. His ring finger measurement is actually 4 inches. So we're gonna mark 4 inches. And his middle finger is 4 1/16 inches. So we're gonna mark 4 1/16 inches. And then we will make some lines to indicate where those holes are supposed to go. Now, same thing here. We're actually getting it as close as we can with the Pro Sec that we're using. We're also going to mark the bridge. The bridge is supposed to be 1/4 of an inch, so I like to kind of get where those marks are supposed to be at. Get those marks. Now, here's a cool thing. The Pro Sec is actually a really good way to get you to that 1/4 of an inch. You can go on either side of the prosect. And once you make sure it's lined up, you can draw a line like that. And then you can scoot it over right here on the back, make sure you're lined up. Draw a line like that, and boom, you got his bridge as well. Okay, so now we've got his measurements there. And now we will use his spec sheet and we'll go actually drill the ball. So we'll put the ball on the press. Dustin uses a 57/64 drill bit. So we'll start with that. And what we will do is we will line this up. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I like to use a razor blade to kind of line up the drill bit. The reason being is because it helps us, and I drill the thumb first too. You can drill the thumb first or drill the fingers first, either way, but I prefer drilling the thumb first. That's kind of how I was taught, and that's just how I feel comfortable doing it. You have to put his pitches in, so the angle of the hole, this direction, or side to side and front to back. So in this case, Dustin's pitch is actually 0 front to back, and it's 0 side to side. So I want to turn the X over there to 0, because he doesn't have a lateral pitch or a forward or reverse pitch, like so. Then we will seek to line up the bit on this line and the tip of the bit on that line. That's the goal here. So first we'll make sure we hit this, which that's pretty good. And then in order for us to hit the front, we'll use that razor blade that we brought in here. So the razor blade will help kind of line you up. You make sure you put it flat against it. And then as a result, you can move it in until you're close. That's close. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. Now, here's what's interesting. When you're drilling a ball, you're not putting a thumb slug in it like we're not in this case. One thing to note is you want to make sure you go slow and you want to make sure you hit that line. So when we go to drill this ball, we're going to drill it slowly and we're going to check, because if we are off a little bit, we can obviously stop, adjust the ball again, and then continue to put the hole in the ball. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So I'm kind of watching in this area just to make sure I'm hitting the center of that line, which I am. And now I'm watching kind of the front to make sure that I clip that line. So real slow there. You can see I'm close. Now the hole's not fully built either, but I'm not quite there yet. Let's see. We're going to see. So see how I just clipped that line? That's what you're trying to do. You want to clip the line. If you hit the line, kind of like splitting it in half, then you've actually done the best you can do. Make sure the hole is all the way built out, which it is, and then you'll want to go ahead and drill. Now we've actually got marks on our press. You can see up here, we've got some marks as to how deep we're going to go. So in this case, we're going to go down to the white line, and then for the finger holes, we will go down to the yellow line. You'll watch, I'll kind of go in, and probably every about ½ an inch, I'll pull back up and let some of that dust out. That just stops you from having to have the hole build up with a lot of the debris, which, I mean, that can create some issues in certain cases. Also good to go slow, so you don't have your ball, you don't have the drill walking or moving around as it begins to hit different densities of materials. You have the cover stock, you have the outer core, you have the inner core. All that stuff can create what's called drill walk, or kind of a ridge in the hole. This is also one of the reasons why you would want to recommend people to use a thumb slug. If you use a thumb slug, you'll have a consistent feel across that hole. Now Dustin also happens to have an angle in his thumb. He actually has an oval in his thumb, so we're actually going to put that in his thumb too. We'll do a 30 thousandths cut. So we're actually going to move this to where it says -30 here. And then we're going to move this to where it says +30. And that's going to put basically a 45-degree cut for him. You'll see, watch this with the drill bit. When I begin to bring it down, it's going to hit this corner of the ball. So you can see it's going to hit that corner of the ball, which is what we want. We want to actually oval the hole out this direction because he's right-handed, and obviously with his thumb, that's going to be where the fat part of the thumb is going to be. So we're going to oval this hole out. And we're actually going to oval it to 70 thousandths, but we're going to do a 30 thousandths cut first, then we'll do another 30 thousandths cut, and then we'll do a small 10 thousandths cut. So that's the first 30. So now we'll go to 60. And we don't just go right to 70, even though the total cut is 70, we don't go to 70 because if you do that, it will create drill walk and you're cutting off too much at a time. So 30 thousandths at a time is the most you want to cut. And then last but not least, we put in a little 10, which will get us to the final cut, which is 7. And that is going to be the cuts for Dustin's thumb. So now we have his thumb drilled. We can take the ball out of the press. We can flip all the dust out. Now, what we'll do is I like to do what's called measure twice, cut once. What I mean by that is we've already measured out the 4 and the 4 and a 16th once, but now we have a thumb hole in here. Now we can get out a little bit more of an accurate tool, a little more of an accurate tool, I should say. And we'll just double check it. I'll also sharpen my pencil again. And we'll double check to see if we're still at 4 and 4 and a 16th. So you can see that is spot on 4. And it's spot on 4 and a 16th. So the span is still like it's supposed to be correct. But it's always better to measure twice. If you missed the line, if you had a little bit of a mistake, you can correct it now because you haven't put those holes in. But once you put those holes in, that's it. So Dustin does use grips, inserts. Inserts use a 31/32 bit. And we will have to input his pitches once again. So I like to go back to 0 to start. And the reason being is because if you're at 0, there's just kind of a little double check that I like to do. So what I'll do, if I'm wanting to double check, is I'll kind of quickly line up the ball front to back at 0, 0. And a little bit, and side to side as well, close. Then I'll input the pitch. And this way it'll be a double check. So his pitch is 3/8 of an inch that way, which 3/8 of an inch actually happens to be 375. So we will go to 375. And here is the check that you can do. In order for you to line the hole back up, the direction that you spin the ball is the direction that the pitch is supposed to go. And on this ball, the pitch is supposed to go this way. And in order for me to line the ball back up with the drill bit, I've got to spin the ball to the left. So that tells me that the pitch that I'm putting in is correct. Front to back. He actually has 3/8 reverse pitch, so we will do the same thing there. So I'm going to show you this little trick again. This is a way you can always double check yourself. 375. Okay, so now, in order for me to get this line lined up to this place, I've got to rotate the ball that direction, which is reverse, which is correct. So that would tell me that I put the pitch in correctly. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my razor blade again, and we're going to double check to see if we can hit this line off just a little bit there. So I'll move it. There we go. And then we want to hit this line side to side. We'll scoot that over. Nope, too far. It's just a little movements. I mean, it's not big movements at all to be able to get that to happen. That's close. Okay, so now we'll lock that in and we'll check. So the object is to split that line and split the other line right there. We'll go slow, and we'll see if we actually did it. And if not, we'll make a small adjustment. I'm just kind of watching to see as it's going to hit both those lines. I can see I'm going to barely miss both, which is fine. So I'll unclamp this. I'll slide it over just a little bit, and I'll slide it down just a little bit. And you can barely even tell that I'm moving the ball. But when I go back to cut it, watch this. And just like that, we split both those lines. So now we've got the right pitch. We'll do the same thing. We'll come in, give it a little bit of relief. We're going down to our yellow mark that we had on the drill press. Right there, and then that'll be it for that hole. Now, if we were doing regular finger holes and we were putting in some sort of oval, we would then put in the oval and make another cut, but we don't have to do that on this ball. So now, we will switch. We can let the drill bit in there, actually. We'll switch, and we'll put in the other pitch. Now, this other pitch happens to be a 1/2 by 1/2, which is 500, so we can go ahead and put in the 500 over here. Which is right there. And then here, it goes from 3/8 to 1/2. So it goes from 375 to 500. There we go. All right, so now we're gonna line the ball back up. Same way, we're gonna take those two points. See if we can split these lines again. That's close. I'm gonna move it just a little bit. There we go. All right, let's see what happens. Making sure I'm gonna hit both those lines, looking for it. You can see that. I barely touched that line, and I'm barely touching that line. So that's what we want. And now the rest of the hole's going to fill out, which is kind of interesting. The hole's going to go this way, and it's going to go this way. It won't go any more on either one of those two lines. And that's because of the pitch. So now the ball's drilled, the holes are physically in the ball, and that would be the process that you would do to be able to get the ball drilled. So now you have a little more information about how to drill a bowling ball. You've been able to watch us go through the entire process. Man, look, we offer pro shop classes. So make sure you check us out at the ctdeducationcenter.com. You can also go to our other website, ctdbowling.com. Click the little tab there. You'll pull up 3 little lines, go down to Education Center, and sign up for one of our pro shop classes. So with that being said, I'm going to jump off here. CEO Ronnie from Creating a Difference. Talk to you soon.